Do you ever want to just lose your nut? Go crazy, absolutely crazy, and start to scream like a child? I do. There's a little baby who lives on the floor below us, and this poor child screams a lot. And his poor mother is so frustrated. When I've seen her in the elevator, her eyes are haggard. Her face is haggard. She looks like she doesn't sleep at all. I had a nephew like that. He stayed with us for, I think, 2 or 3 days while his parents went away. And this poor child screamed for, I kid you not, 15 hours non-stop. It was really an experience to see. So I guess screaming is a way of release, isn't it? Now, I think there's really 2 directions we can go here. The positive scream, or, of course, the negative scream. And the positive scream, I think, would be when life is just not fair. And this happens at times. You know, it was a tough winter. It was cold, and I'm looking for a jacket. I was in a department store, and I stumbled upon the correct jacket. And at the time I was in Taiwan, and so the NT was worth about 30 to the American dollar, around this level. So I'm there, and I stumble upon this jacket, 5,000 NT, a little bit over, maybe $250, $260. Not bad for a beautiful jacket. So I get the clerk and I try it on, and geez, it's just fitting very well. And in the process, the tag slips a little further, and I realize that there is another zero. This is not 5,000 NT, $260. This is 50,000 NT. This is $2,600. Quite a difference. But to be fair, it is a shopping center and it was an expensive shop and all of that. But at this point, and I think the jacket was blue. And so I said to the woman, I was so embarrassed, I said, "Excuse me, do you have this in pink?" And she said, "Pink? Pink? Nobody makes pink in a jacket like this." I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I really wanted the color pink." So needless to say, I had to leave it alone and I left. I never did find a jacket of this quality for that kind of money. But I really at that point wanted to scream, just fall right down and lose my self-control. But of course, I didn't. Now, I did teach a sales manager for a large company, and she told me that on the weekends, she used to escape to the mountains and would find a precipice or a crevasse or something with seemingly bottomless, and she would just stand there and just let it all hang out, scream for hours if she could, to help her relax. And she was able to deal with the inane questions of her of her staff during the week. And she struck me as an extremely calm woman for the, pressure she was under. But this was her secret. Now, on the negative side, these are people that truly lose self-control. And I mentioned this before. I saw a man driving an expensive Mercedes-Benz. The stoplight seemingly came up rather quickly, and the car behind just touched the back of him, and he proceeded to jump out of the car and berate this poor man in the previous car, the car behind him. And it struck me as really unfair because the levels of power were ridiculous. The man with the Mercedes-Benz was, of course, good-looking and rich, I would say, and powerful, etc., etc. And the chap behind him was just a shriveled up little old man, broken and bags under his eyes. Cruel. Just cruel. I thought it was unnecessary, at this point, right? So I think as we go forward in life, we have to find all sorts of ways to reduce our stress levels in this very, very strange and cosmopolitan world. We're subject to so many influences and powers and statements, everything else. Very confusing many times, right? So whenever we feel as if we're going to lose our patience or our temper, we can either try the scream of my sales manager, or we can do the internal way through prayer, meditation, what have you. But I don't think it's correct in any civilized society to allow oneself to just let your unbridled anger descend upon a poor human being. I do believe one thing for sure. Ultimately, we have to learn to speak with one another. Whatever our religious convictions, our view of the world, our ethnicity, our gender, we have to learn to talk. And I may not like you at all, for that matter. I may not like your culture at all. But given that we can preclude a level of violence, certainly we can have a chat and somehow resolve our problems. And the man I visited in India, Sadhguru, he always states that violence is a direct result of lack of language in a way. We cannot communicate adequately, so we resort to violence. And the ridiculous part about violence, the war business, if I can call it such, is ultimately it resolves nothing. But maybe that's the plan, unfortunately. There is no real desire to put violence asunder. But of course we have to if we're going to survive as a species, because the weaponry now is so technologically advanced that we can wipe ourselves out many times over. And I think we're not quite prepared for what could be in that sense. I read an article recently on the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, and the people were unprepared for the consequence of what actually happened. They were quite stunned that they didn't really know what it was. A visit from God, a storm? What had happened here? But that was the dropping of the first nuclear bomb. And you can imagine that scenario. And now the bombs, of course, are hundreds of times stronger than what was dropped on Hiroshima. So the human species probably wouldn't disappear. It would be broken back to the Stone Age, basically. You might even lose the capacity for fire, writing, knowledge. It just goes on, doesn't it? So I think on the positive side, we must learn to scream positively. And I won't be looking for any 50,000 NT dollar jackets for a little while. And you know what they say. Critical thinking is necessary if we're going to live a fulfilling and happy life. And we're going to find ways to reduce our stress levels, be loving beings. And critical thinking is great. Truly great. You take care. God bless. Bye-bye.